I thought today was a good day to do this. I did. I thought, we're dealing with the potential for a lost season, and there's all this arguing and squabbling going on. So I grabbed this. This is a book that a subscriber actually sent me years ago. I know we lived in the old house when I got it, and it's Big Bucks and Blue Pucks, and it's all about the WHA. And the WHA, which, if you're younger than me, I highly doubt that you remember much about it, if you remember it at all. I never watched a WHA game myself. By the time I was watching hockey, it was gone. But the effect that the WHA had on the NHL is still being felt today. And it starts with contracts. So back in the day, NHL owners decided, you know what? If I have a player on my team, I own him. If I want to trade him, I can trade him. But if his contract's up, I own him. And the other owners went, that's a really good idea. We should own the players, and they don't have any rights. There was no union. This was a league that kept its salaries down. So it's a matter of, let's say the Boston Bruins gave a guy a raise from $50,000 to $80,000. Well, now that's going to affect the want and desire of somebody in Montreal. So the Montreal owner's going to phone up Boston and go, what are you doing? So that kind of agreement to keep salaries down, keep profits up, because those are important too, it led to a situation where the NHL and their players really didn't like each other. Which may sound familiar whenever you're watching this. And so the WHA was an interesting idea. But the idea that teams own players wasn't just a National Hockey League idea. It was across all sports. So in the NBA, where this was becoming a major problem, they decided to challenge this. And they started out the American Basketball Association. And it turned out, you couldn't enforce it. So once the ABA comes in, and it proves you could have a rival league, all right. So Dennis A. Murphy, who was co-founder of the ABA, decides, maybe I could start my own hockey league too. Maybe this could work. Because there's no free agency, and there's players who are miserable with their teams. They don't want to be there. So another league would come along saying, so we'll offer you more money, and you could potentially be a free agent. We don't own you. You are your own man. That's an attractive idea. So ditching that reserve clause caused the NHL to say, good luck with that. So this was a big reason that the NHL looked at the WHA and said, that's never going to work. If they don't own their players are free to leave and go wherever they want when their contracts are up. That's not going to work. That's going to drive costs through the roof. Right. So the franchise fee was $25,000. And what they did basically was they went city to city and they appealed to businessmen who might have wanted a franchise for prestige purposes, right? Maybe a tax write-off, just the idea of, hey, you ever want to own a sports franchise? Sure. Somebody knocked on my door tomorrow and said, hey, Shannon, you want to own a sports franchise? First, I'd say, how'd you find my house? And second, I'd say, what kind of sports, what would be in it for me? What kind of sports franchise? So it would be interesting, to say the least. And they got some interesting people. The problem is it's expensive running a sports league, and not all of these owners that came in necessarily had the kind of money required in order to create stability. But WHA wasn't about stability, it was about fun. So the NHL shrugged it off, said it won't last till Christmas. President Clarence Campbell said, yeah, whatever, screw them. And this was the NHL's opinion of the WHA throughout, was that this league came up, they drove up costs, which made all the owners in the NHL hate this league and want to bury it. So as years go by, and as we go through a playlist on this, and there will be a playlist on this, the WHA doesn't make friends. This isn't about making friends. This is about being fun and new and different. And we're going to go to all these markets that the NHL won't allow into the league. The NHL is being elitist. And we're going to go all these other places. This is why a rival league likely never starts up again. Because this exposed just how difficult this is. So February 1972, they held their first draft, showing we're for real. Now, they won't play games until the following October. And they're drafting guys off NHL teams, which shows some guts, right? And the Jets managed to sign Bobby Hull, which the Blackhawks didn't take seriously until they heard, Starting price is $1 million for the contract. The Hawks went, pardon? It's what? And then ended up being around $2 million, and he ends up signing for, it's a total of 10 years, but the first 5 years at $250,000 a year, and he gets $1 million bonus. Unheard of. This money is absolutely unheard of in the world of hockey. This isn't a thing. So the National Hockey League, hearing this, whether they think this league is a joke or not, they can't let this happen. And the entire league jumps in to help pay for Hull's contract. A first, where an entire league goes, we need that player. Bobby Hull says, yeah, I'll leave Chicago. I'll go to Winnipeg. Sure. And so the entire league realizes this is important. If we're going to be taken seriously, we have to get a big name. This would be like if a new league came in now, them picking up, now Bobby Hull being one of the greatest goal scorers, it would be like Ovechkin saying, I'm going to go to this new rival league. And obviously the NHL would be upset with that. And a younger version would be, if Austin Matthews came out and said, yeah, I'm going to go to a rival league. It would cause a lot of waves. Now, from July 1st to October 1st of 1972, they add over 100 players who had been under contract from the NHL and the AHL previously. So they had a lot of players. Keep in mind, the NHL's smaller at this stage. I think 72, we've been looking at like 12, 14 teams, maybe even 16 by 72. But taking 100 players, it's not nothing. And Derek Sanderson even would sign there. He lasted 8 games. We'll talk about him in the next video. But 100 players. Can you imagine in a current scenario that a new league comes, let's say the International Hockey League comes back, the IHL. The last time that a league looked and said, maybe we could be a rival pro league of some sort. And it just didn't work. The money, the costs, it just didn't work. But let's say the IHL jumps back up and 100 players from the National Hockey League said, yeah, okay. And that would include AHL guys and some minor league guys. But you have a handful of pretty decent players saying, yeah, no, I'll go to that rival league. I'll go play there. So the Blackhawks would file an injunction to stop Hull from joining the Jets. And it ended up in this court case that was pretty highly contested by the Blackhawks. Chicago knows what they have here. And yes, it was 2 words back then. It was 2 words until the 80s. But the Hawks find themselves in a situation where they're going to lose their most visible player, their likely most popular player at the time in Bobby Hull, and the court decides to reject it. They decide to allow Bobby Hull to leave the National Hockey League and join this fledgling WHA, which had been said wouldn't last until Christmas. So your key dates here, January of 1971, Dennis A. Murphy, the ABA co-founder, conceives the second league as an idea. That would be fleshed out between him and another owner. That they would create this league together. September of 1971, the first formal meeting of the WHA is carried out in LA. And of course, they go through the process of making sure they've got their trademarks in order and that they're a corporation, they're seen as a company, and all this wonderful stuff. November 1st, 1971, they announce teams. They go, all right, here's our teams. The Alberta Oilers, now known as the Edmonton Oilers, of course. Calgary Broncos, Chicago Cougars, Dayton Arrows, LA Sharks, Miami Screaming Eagles, the New York Raiders, St. Paul Fighting Saints. The fact that Saint is in there twice is weird and it makes it a mouthful. San Francisco would be named as well. No team name at the time. Winnipeg Jets. And on November 21st of 1971, Ontario is named as a team for their initial season, although there's no team name given. Just Ontario. Where? Ontario. Somewhere. Can't be that big, right? It's in Canada. And the New England Whalers, who are, of course, the Hartford Whalers when they would join the NHL. So your strong franchises that would end up being part of the National Hockey League are there right out of the gate. Because February 11th of 1972, the San Francisco franchise, before playing a game, ends up in Quebec, and they become named the Nordiques. And this is what plagues the WHA throughout. Teams move. They move a lot. Cities can't make it work. Owners, oh, how much is this going to cost me? I don't have that kind of money. March 1972, Dayton. We still haven't played a game yet, moves to Houston and becomes the Houston Aeros. Now, what I thought was interesting was we always talk about where NHL teams might move and who might end up getting a team. Quebec and Houston are the two cities that come up the most when we talk about where a team would move. So the WHA is ahead of the curve there. They understand where hockey could work and where cities might be interested in having a team. June 21st of 1972, Miami, who hasn't played a game yet, and it's a shame because the Miami Screaming Eagles would have been a great name. They are moved to Philadelphia and they become the Blazers. The Blazers, don't get used to them in Philadelphia, and of course this just becomes Laser if I put my hands down thusly. Blazers are going to be part of this, and the Cleveland Crusaders are announced as well. And the Cleveland Crusaders of the WHA jerseys that I have purchased is the nicest one of the four. So there will be 4 different jerseys that I will be wearing during this series from the WHA. However, I reserve the right to wear Whalers, Nordiques, Jets, and Oilers. Now, June 27th of 1972 is when Hull officially signs the 10-year, $2.75 million contract, and that opened the door for everybody else. So basically it's a, hey, look what Bobby's making over there. That's a lot of money. And that's where Derek Sanderson, Jerry Cheevers, J.C. Tremblay, a lot of players will just jump ship, go over to the WHA and play there because they make a lot more money. They have say in their contract, and they probably felt more appreciated by the WHA. The WHA that first year knows without Hull, without winning that court case, if the Blackhawks had managed to hold on to him, they don't get 100 players. They don't get that door open for all the other players to come in. They would still have gotten players, but there were definitely veterans who came over to the WHA side of things because of that. And then October 11th of 1972, they officially hit the ice and started what would be the first season out of, I believe it's 7 altogether. So it didn't last that long. The WHA was not around for a ton of time. But boy, did they do a lot of damage in the time they were around for the National Hockey League owners. In that they created free agency. They really expanded the amount of money that players can make greatly. And they gave some power to the players. And so it was a good thing. And as we go through this series, we will discuss each season and how many of these teams move every year. I don't recommend making a drinking game out of it. I really, really don't. But it's fascinating. It's quite the story. And now we've embarked on it. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.